Why does One Piece keep changing its art style? Over the course of more than 20 years, One Piece has gone through at least 7 distinct art style changes. And the easy answer is to say that it's because of advancing technology. And while that absolutely plays a role, it doesn't explain why One Piece has never stayed visually consistent. To really understand why this series keeps evolving the way it does, we have to go back to the very beginning, not to the anime, but to the manga, and to the way One Piece was always designed to change. Before we talk about directors, budgets, or animation technology, it's important to understand one thing. One Piece has never had a single, fixed art style, not even in the manga. When One Piece first began in the late 90s, Ichiro Oda's art was noticeably simple. Characters weren't as cartoonish yet, their proportions were more restrained, backgrounds were straightforward, and panel layouts were clean and easy to follow. The art wasn't trying to be flashy, it was trying to be readable. But that simplicity wasn't a limitation. It allowed Oda to emphasize motion, impact, and expression in a way that made the action feel explosive, even without heavy detail. As the story progressed, that simplicity didn't stay in place, it evolved. As One Piece moved beyond East Blue and into arcs like Alabasta and Skypiea, Oda's art began to change in a very noticeable way. Characters became more exaggerated, heads grew larger, bodies stretched thinner, and silhouettes became more distinct. Faces were more expressive, and designs started leaning heavily into personality over realism. This is where One Piece truly began to look like One Piece. Oda wasn't just drawing characters anymore, he was designing them to be instantly recognizable, even from a distance. Side characters became more memorable, villains more visually imposing, and the world itself started to feel larger and stranger. At the same time, the art became denser. Action scenes gained more detail, movement became more aggressive, and panel layouts grew messier, not by accident, but as a result of trying to convey scale, chaos, and intensity. This is important because it shows us something crucial. Change wasn't a reaction to criticism or technology. It was part of Oda actively pushing his own style forward. This constant evolution in Oda's art style matters because the One Piece anime isn't just adapting a story, it's adapting a moving target. Unlike seasonal anime, One Piece has been produced almost continuously for decades. That means new episodes every week, rotating staff, changing directors, and constantly shifting production conditions. An anime art style isn't just a creative choice, it's a production system. So when Oda's manga evolves, the anime has to respond. Sometimes that response is subtle, other times it requires a complete visual overhaul. And this is why One Piece can't lock itself into a single look forever. Doing so would eventually break the production, or the adaptation itself. The first major turning point in the One Piece anime comes during the Water 7 era. Around this time, the series made the switch from a 4:3 aspect ratio to widescreen, instantly changing how scenes were framed and how characters occupied the screen. But this wasn't just a format upgrade. Water 7 also marked a shift in visual direction. Character designs became more refined, lighting became more dramatic, and the animation leaned harder into dynamic camera movement. Action scenes felt faster and more deliberate, while emotional moments were staged with greater weight and atmosphere. For many fans, this was the moment One Piece stopped feeling like a long-running Saturday morning cartoon and started feeling like a modern anime series. And importantly, this change was largely welcomed, because it felt like the anime was finally catching up to the ambition of the manga. The next major shift comes with the time skip. And this one is impossible to miss. With Fishman Island, One Piece fully transitions into the HD digital era. Colors become brighter, lines are cleaner, and the overall image feels sharper and smoother than ever before. Character designs also change dramatically. On a technical level, the animation becomes more consistent, movement is smoother, effects are more pronounced, and the show clearly benefits from modern digital tools. But this is also where the fanbase starts to split. For some viewers, this era represents a clear upgrade. For others, something feels lost. The colors are too glossy, the lighting too clean, and the art style feels more artificial compared to the rougher, textured look of earlier arcs. And that reaction makes sense, because this wasn't just an artistic change, it was a technological one. Then comes Wano, and with it, the most dramatic visual shift in One Piece's history. Unlike previous changes, Wano doesn't feel like a gradual upgrade or a technical adjustment. It feels intentional. The art style pulls inspiration from traditional Japanese aesthetics, and for the first time in the TV series, major episodes are animated with a level of spectacle that rivals full-length anime films. The animation itself becomes more experimental. Wano isn't trying to look like classic One Piece, it's trying to elevate it. And when we look at Egghead, it just took what Wano did and took it to the next level. So why does One Piece keep changing its art style? Because change has always been built into the series. From the very beginning, Oda never treated his art as something static. As the story grew in scale, tone, and ambition, the visuals grew with it. The anime inherits that philosophy, but it also has to navigate real-world constraints, new directors bringing new visions, evolving technology reshaping what's possible, and production realities that make standing still impossible. On top of that, One Piece's world itself demands variation. Each arc has a different culture, mood, and identity, and the art style shifts to reflect that diversity. So when the anime changes how it looks, it isn't abandoning its identity, it's responding to it. One Piece doesn't keep changing its art style because it's lost or inconsistent. It changes because it's still alive. For over 2 decades, this series has refused to freeze itself in time. As the story evolved, as the world expanded, and as the people behind it changed, the visuals adapted right alongside them. Every era of One Piece looks different, and eventually, every era becomes someone's favorite. The art style fans defend today was once the art style others criticized, and the same will be true for whatever comes next. So the next time One Piece changes how it looks, the question isn't whether it's right or wrong, it's whether the series would still be One Piece if it didn't.